Easy Explain, A Vindication of the Rights of Woman by Mary Wollstonecraft, Character and Environment. So this theme of Mary's is largely an application of Lockean Empiricism, where if you go back to Locke, who says that it's through experience that we come to know and understand everything, right? Being born is tabula rasa, or blank slates. And this is Mary's language of this, right? That our character and our characteristics are determined by our environment. And this is the argument she's going to make for women, that women are right now only, or at least in 1792, are docile and submissive and modest because that is the environment they are put into by men. But if we put them into different environments, they would have different characters and different characteristics. So this really starts in chapter 4, which she calls Observations on the State of Degradation to which woman is reduced by various causes, these causes being those environmental causes put upon by men. Real quick, though, just a quick one that kind of stands on its own. I think it's a great little quip by Mary. She says, every individual is a world in itself. It's kind of Kantian in a sense there. It's a good one. Moving on more on the topic, Mary says, necessity has been proverbial termed the mother of invention. The aphorism may be extended to virtue. It is an acquirement, and an acquirement to which pleasure must be sacrificed. So, she's saying this is a necessary call she's putting out here, where women might need to sacrifice pleasure to attain these virtues that she's going to lay out for them, right? These equalities of men at the time. So she goes on to say, I lament that women are systematically degraded by receiving the trivial attentions which men think it manly to pay to the sex, when in fact they are insultingly supporting their own superiority. It is not condescension to bow to an inferior. So ludicrous, in fact, do these ceremonies appear to me that I scarcely am able to govern my muscles when I see a man start with eager and serious solicitude to lift a handkerchief or shut a door when the lady could have done it herself had she only moved a pace or two, right? So big call out to these little favors and courtesies that men are doing that Mary has an issue with on both sides, right? Men should not be doing this. It's just silly. And women, come on, you can do some of these things for yourself, right? She's making a call for that here. Mary goes on. She says, I do earnestly wish to see the distinction of sex confounded in society, unless where love animates the behavior. For this distinction is, I am firmly persuaded, the foundation of the weakness of character ascribed to women. Is the cause why the understanding is neglected, whilst accomplishments are acquired with sedulous care, and the same cause accounts for their preferring the graceful before the heroic virtues. So she's saying there's just too much of a distinction between, the gender differences here between men and women in society. She's like, we gotta get rid of that, and then from there we can start to build up a more equal standing for both. Big quote coming next from Mary. You may have heard of this one before. She says, this is the very point I aim at. I do not wish them, women, to have power over men, but over themselves, right? So she's not calling for a feminist uprising for women to supplant men as some kind of superior sex. She's calling for equality. And where we're going to really find this equality is women really coming in terms, to overpower themselves, to use to borrow a Nietzschean term, right? She wants to see that kind of rising up here. Mary goes on, most of the evils of life arise from a desire of present enjoyment that outruns itself. The obedience required of women in the marriage state comes under this description. The mind, naturally weakened by depending on authority, the authority of men, of husbands in this case, never exerts its own powers. And the obedient wife is thus rendered a weak, indolent mother. Right? Those are strong words here, but Mary's given us a great example of where she sees this most presently, presenting itself in culture. It's in marriage. And tying back to the previous chapters, the earlier chapters, Mary talking about friendship and love as some basic principles of women's rights here. She revisits it here in chapter 4. Mary says, friendship is a serious affection, the most sublime of all affections, because it's founded on a principle and cemented by time. The very reverse may be said of love. In a great degree, love and friendship cannot subsist in the same bosom. Even when inspired by different objects, they weaken or destroy each other, and for the same object can only be felt in succession. The vain fears and fond jealousies, the winds which fan the flame of love, when judiciously or artfully tempered, are both incompatible with the tender confidence and sincere respect of friendship. So again, here Mary's just saying how women are entitled to this great value of friendship, just like men are, whether it be women with women or women with men. And there shouldn't be this expectation that women are just love on the brain and they fall in love with men so much more easily and they stay in love more easily. She's still trying to get rid of that here when we look at character and environment. Another chapter where this is a really big theme, jump ahead a little bit, chapter 6. Mary calls this the effect which an early association of ideas has upon the character. And this is very clearly, it's a pretty short chapter, but it's a very clear depiction of Mary pulling from Locke and his empirical philosophy and tying it into her own argument here, right? We're looking at the early association of ideas. This is going back to having an equal education between men and women, and how this educational environment, giving women different ideas earlier on, can affect their character, bring them up into these more virtuous characters, more heroic characters. But for now, I hope that helps.